Picture the scene. It's late evening, the house is silent. Suddenly, your cat freezes, their pupils dilate, and they stare intently into a completely empty corner of the room. Maybe they even let out a quiet growl or a hiss. Sound familiar? Every cat owner likely has a story like this, the kind that sends shivers down your spine. The first question that pops into your head is, what is it seeing? Could cats actually be able to see ghosts? In today's video, we are going to ditch the speculation and the mysticism and look at this mystery purely from a scientific perspective. I promise you will discover things about your cat's abilities that you never even suspected. And the truth, perhaps, will be far more amazing than any spooky ghost story. By the way, has this ever happened to you? Let us know in the comments below. The belief that cats are connected to the supernatural world goes back to deep antiquity. In ancient Egypt, they were revered as sacred animals, capable of protecting homes from evil spirits. The goddess Bastet, depicted with a cat's head, was the patron of home and joy. But then, in medieval Europe, everything changed. Cats, especially black ones, became associated with witches and dark forces. They were widely believed to be the devil's helpers and conduits to the world of the dead. These superstitions and myths, passed down through generations, shaped the cultural image of the cat as a mysterious and mystical being. This enduring aura of enigma still makes us wonder, what if there is a grain of truth in these old legends? Let's begin our scientific investigation now and separate the facts from the fiction. So let's begin with the most obvious point, sight. When we talk about seeing the unseen, we instinctively think of our eyes. But this is precisely where the first, and arguably the most crucial, difference between cats and humans lies. Their visual world is fundamentally different from ours. Imagine slipping on night vision goggles that also track movement with unbelievable precision. That gives you a rough idea of how your cat perceives the world. A cat's eye is an evolutionary masterpiece, perfected for hunting during twilight hours. They possess a far greater number of light-sensitive cells, known as rods, than humans do. This allows them to see with 6 to 8 times less light than a human requires. So, while a room may appear almost completely dark to you, for your cat, it is filled with details, shadows, and subtle gradations of light. This single fact alone begins to explain much of what we perceive as their strange or erratic behaviour in the dark. But the ability to merely see in the dark is only half the story. Behind the retina, cats possess a specialized reflective layer called the tapetum lucidum. This is what causes their eyes to reflect that eerie, unsettling glow when light catches them in the dark. But its primary function isn't just to spook us. The tapetum acts like a mirror, bouncing the light that has already passed through the retina right back onto it. This effectively gives the photoreceptors a second chance to capture every single photon of light. This boost increases the efficiency of their night vision by up to 40%. So, that tiny speck of dust drifting through a beam of moonlight, or the subtle dance of shadows cast by branches outside, things utterly invisible to us, become a full-blown light show for a cat. When your cat stares into what seems like empty space, she isn't seeing nothing. She's seeing everything her world makes visible. But ours doesn't. It's not paranormal. It's simply superior biology. Get ready for something truly astonishing. Beyond their famous night vision, cats perceive light that is essentially invisible to the human eye. We are talking about ultraviolet radiation. The human eye lens naturally blocks ultraviolet light, protecting our retina. A cat's lens, however, allows this light right through. So how does this benefit them? Scientists theorize that this ability aids their vision, particularly during twilight and when navigating snowy landscapes. But perhaps more importantly, many objects in nature naturally reflect UV light. For instance, rodent urine glows under UV, essentially creating bright, obvious tracking lines for a predator. Certain flowers display UV patterns that point to nectar, patterns designed to attract insects, which in turn become prey for the cat. Now imagine your own home is filled with tracks, patterns and smudges that you simply cannot detect. A cat might be reacting to cleaning fluid residue on the wall, or a faint trail left by a spider, all of which could be glowing clearly under the UV spectrum. Let's start with movement. A cat's eyes are perfectly engineered to detect the absolute smallest, quickest shifts. This is a critical, key skill for a predator tracking skittish or darting prey. Unlike us humans who rely on cones in the centre of our retina for sharp, detailed colour vision, cats have a massive predominance of rods. Rods are primarily dedicated to detecting motion and light. It's true that they might not see fine details as clearly as we do, and their colour palette is generally limited to shades of blue and green. But their advantage lies in motion detection. They pick up movements our eyes completely ignore. Think about it: a faint ripple in the air that makes a spiderweb shudder in the corner, a tiny gnat buzzing near the ceiling, or just a fleeting glint of light bouncing off a wall clock. For a cat, all of these are incredibly powerful stimuli. They aren't seeing ghosts, they're simply reacting to a potential meal, or just something new and highly interesting happening in their world. Alright, so we've covered sight. But what about a cat's hearing? If a cat's eyes are essentially built-in night vision goggles, then their ears are nothing short of a hypersensitive radar system. The human ear can typically pick up sounds in a range up to 20,000 Hz. That's our absolute limit. Now prepare for the difference. Cats hear frequencies up to 65,000 Hz, and some research suggests that figure is closer to 100,000 Hz. This falls deep within the ultrasonic range, the same range used by communicating rodents, flying bats, and many of our common electronic devices operating. That quiet whine your TV makes while in standby mode, or the subtle hum of wiring inside your walls. To you, this is absolute silence. But for a cat, that noise is clear, distinct, and perhaps even irritatingly loud. When you see a cat hissing at seemingly nothing, it's often reacting to high-frequency noise originating behind the drywall or underneath the floorboards. It's not just the range that matters, it's the incredible accuracy. A cat's ears are essentially sophisticated locators. Each ear is controlled by over 30 muscles, allowing them to pivot a full 180 degrees, completely independent of the other. This capability allows them to pinpoint the source of a sound with astonishing precision. They can even locate a mouse hidden beneath the snow, pinpointing its exact spot within just a few centimetres. When your cat suddenly turns its head and freezes, listening intently, chances are it's heard something very real. A mouse scratching inside the walls, the rush of water through a neighbour's pipes, or even the high-pitched whine of a faulty charging device in the next room. We don't hear any of this, so we assume they're reacting to silence. But for them, true silence doesn't exist. Their world is constantly filled with a rich tapestry of sounds that are completely inaccessible to us. Let's turn our attention now to the world of scent. While we humans rely primarily on sight, for cats, the world is overwhelmingly defined by aroma. Their sense of smell is roughly 14 times more powerful than ours. They possess about 200 million olfactory receptors in their nose, while we have only about 5 million. This superior hardware means they can detect odours we are completely unaware of. They can smell that the neighbour's dog walked past the front door hours ago, or detect the faint residual street smells left on your shoes. To a cat, an old house that simply smells musty to us is actually an entire library of scents, cataloguing every previous occupant, human and animal alike. Perhaps your cat hisses at a corner because it retains the scent of an unfamiliar animal, a scent that completely faded from our weak human detection spectrum years ago. And that's not all. Cats possess a secret olfactory weapon, the vomeronasal organ, also known as Jacobson's organ. This organ is located on the roof of the mouth, right behind the front teeth, and its sole purpose is to detect specific chemical signals, pheromones. You've probably seen your cat sometimes open its mouth slightly, wrinkle its nose, and freeze with that strange, almost grotesque expression on its face. This is called the flamen response. In this moment, the cat isn't smelling in the usual way. Instead, it's essentially tasting the scent, channeling air molecules directly into the vomeronasal organ. Pheromones are chemical messages left behind by other animals. They carry crucial information about gender, social status, reproductive readiness, fear, or stress. A cat can detect a message of fear left by a mouse that scurried through the area an hour ago and react accordingly. To us, this might look like the cat is reacting to absolute nothingness. Let's not forget about the sense of touch, particularly the vibrissae, which we commonly call whiskers. But these vibrissae aren't confined just to the muzzle. They also grow above the cat's eyes, on the chin, and even on the back of their front paws. These aren't just coarse hairs. They are incredibly sophisticated sensory organs. At the root, every single whisker is richly surrounded by nerve endings and blood vessels, making them unbelievably sensitive. These vibrissae pick up the most minute changes in air currents. When you walk past your cat, it literally feels the movement of the air you displace. A cat can accurately map out obstacles in complete darkness without ever physically touching them. That's why when your cat stares intently at a spot, it might not be reacting to something visual, but to something it senses. Maybe a slight draft creeping in under the door, or the shift of warm air rising from a radiator. It's essentially their personal built-in radar system. It's not just the whiskers that are sensitive. A cat's entire coat is actually a vital part of its sensory system. At the base of every single hair follicle are nerve endings. This is why cats are so highly responsive to touch. It also allows them to sense when someone is approaching, even if they can't see or hear the person. They literally feel these vibrations through their skin and fur. Human footsteps on the floor, the low hum of a running refrigerator, the distant rumble of a car passing outside, all of these create vibrations that a cat's whole body detects. This is especially true in older homes where the floors and walls seem to have a life of their own. A cat might suddenly jump or bolt away because it felt a vibration that predicts, say, a book about to fall off a shelf. Or perhaps they simply reacted to a low-frequency noise that is far below the threshold of human perception. Now let's synthesize all this information. Imagine a brain that has to process this immense influx of data: ultraviolet vision, ultrasonic hearing, a sense of smell 14 times more powerful than ours, pheromone analysis, information streaming from their whiskers, and vibrations felt throughout their entire body. The feline brain is wired differently than ours. It prioritizes these specific sensory inputs above all else. What we consider background noise or an insignificant detail could be the main event of the moment for a cat. Their reality is a complex, multi-layered map of sounds, scents, and movements overlaid upon the visible world. Their behavior, which often seems strange or illogical to us, is actually a perfectly logical reaction to the information they are receiving from the environment. We simply don't have access to the same data. All of this behavior stems not from mysticism, but from millions of years of evolution. The cat is a tiny, perfect predator. Every single one of its sensory organs has been honed for a single purpose: locating prey and avoiding danger. The ability to detect the slightest movement, hear a rodent squeak through a wall, or even catch the scent of fear, these aren't superpowers. They are vital instruments for survival. So, when your well-fed, cozy house cat suddenly freezes in a perfect hunting pose, staring intently at the wall, she isn't seeing a ghost. In that moment, the deep instincts of her wild ancestors are taking over. She's simply reacting to some stimulus exactly as nature programmed her to, like a predator that is always on high alert. Even if that stimulus turns out to be nothing more than a stray sunbeam or the faint sound of dripping water. Let's now dive into some of the most common paranormal cat behaviors and offer a scientific explanation for each. Scenario number 1. Your cat is staring intently at a seemingly empty corner or wall. What exactly is going on? The first and most probable explanation is simple. It's the interplay of light and shadow. Moving clouds outside, car headlights sweeping across the room, or even the subtle glare from a TV screen create minute shifts in illumination. A cat's eye is perfectly tuned to detect the slightest motion, meaning it instantly locks onto these changes. Number 2. Dust motes or tiny insects. The air is filled with microscopic particles that are invisible to us, unless they catch the light. But for a cat whose vision operates on a much finer level of detail, this constant micro-movement can be absolutely captivating. And third, sounds coming from behind the wall. Whether it's a mouse scratching, a roach crawling, or just the hum of the plumbing, the cat can precisely locate the source and fix its gaze directly on that spot. Scenario number 2. Your cat suddenly hisses, growls, or arches its back, staring right into what looks like thin air. This is often the behaviour that freaks owners out the most, but even here there are perfectly logical explanations. As we mentioned earlier, it could be a reaction to a high-frequency sound we simply can't detect. Many common electronic devices, things like power adapters, energy-saving bulbs or monitors, emit a faint ultrasonic hum or squeak that can be highly irritating to a cat. Another major factor could be a scent reaction. Maybe you tracked in the scent of a strange cat or dog on your shoes, and that smell has lingered in a specific spot. Your cat perceives this as a clear territorial invasion and reacts aggressively, defending its domain from an invisible foe. Scenario 3. The cat is sitting perfectly still and then suddenly jumps up as if stung or pricked and bolts away. This may seem bizarre, but the culprit is often static electricity. In dry air, especially during winter, a cat's fur can easily build up a static charge. When that charge reaches a certain point, a small discharge occurs, which the cat feels as a mild but distinctly unpleasant sting or shock. This often happens when she rubs against a synthetic carpet or a fleece blanket. Naturally, she gets startled and runs away from the spot where she experienced that sensation. All we see is an apparently unprovoked fright. Other causes might include sudden vibrations or a sharp noise that we barely registered, but that sounded like a gunshot to the cat. But now, let's turn our attention to us, to humans. We have a concept known as anthropomorphism, the tendency to attribute human feelings, thoughts, and motives to animals. We deeply love our pets, and we often project onto their behaviour exactly what we want to see. If we are already believers in ghosts or simply enjoy a good spooky story, it becomes incredibly easy to interpret a cat's strange behaviour as concrete evidence of the paranormal. We are projecting our own fears and expectations right onto them. The cat might just be staring intently at a dust mote, but in our minds we've already conjured a full-blown phantom lurking in the corner. Our own psychology plays a massive role in this equation. Ultimately, we are seeking confirmation for our existing beliefs, and we readily find that confirmation in the actions of a creature whose true motives we don't fully understand. Even with all the scientific explanations we have, we still have to admit one thing. The world of cats is so complex and distinct from our own that we simply can't claim to understand it completely. Science might be able to explain 99% of their strange behaviour, but there's always that elusive 1% that truly makes you wonder. Can cats sense changes in electromagnetic fields? Some scientists hypothesize that they can. Can they predict natural disasters, like earthquakes, by picking up infrasound or subtle ground vibrations? There is substantial anecdotal evidence suggesting they might. To completely rule out the possibility that they possess abilities we haven't yet fully studied would be unscientific. The key is simply to avoid confusing these potential but entirely physical abilities with mysticism or communication with spirits. So, what exactly is the cat's so-called sixth sense? Forget the idea that they possess some mystical ability to see ghosts. Their sixth sense is actually an incredible synergy, a powerful synthesis of their 5 core senses, all honed to absolute perfection. It's their unique ability to simultaneously analyse the world, seeing in ultraviolet, hearing in ultrasound, detecting the most subtle scents, reading complex chemical messages, and feeling the slightest air vibrations. When all these massive data streams merge and integrate in the feline brain, they produce a perception of reality that is simply inaccessible to us mere humans. They aren't seeing a different world. They are seeing our world, but they see it exponentially fuller, richer, and more detailed than we ever could. Their superpower isn't magic, it's pure biology. And honestly, that is far more impressive. You can become a much better cat parent simply by understanding how your cat truly perceives the world. For example, if your cat is always stressed out or spooked in a certain area, maybe hold off on calling the exorcist. Instead, check for a buzzing or whining power adapter, or any other source of high-frequency noise that only she can hear. Grab a UV flashlight and check the walls and furniture for old scent markings left by previous pets. These invisible traces can be highly stressful for your cat. Also, ensure she has plenty of vertical space, cat trees, shelves, or secured perches, so she can safely survey her territory from above. Tuning into her genuine needs, which are dictated by her unique feline perspective, will make your life together much more harmonious. You'll naturally start to understand her language and her motives better. Ultimately, let's circle back to our core question. Can cats actually see ghosts? Scientifically speaking, there is zero evidence of it. Instead, what we have is substantial proof that their senses are so highly developed and fundamentally different from ours that their reactions to the world can easily seem supernatural. They aren't spiritual mediums. They are simply nature's incredibly effective sensory machines. Their mysterious behaviour isn't about connecting to the afterlife. It's merely a reflection of our own failure to understand their complex and astonishing world. So, the next time your cat freezes, staring intently into empty space, don't be alarmed. Instead, try to imagine what exactly she might be seeing, hearing, or sensing in that very moment. Try to look at the world through her eyes. That is infinitely more fascinating than any tale of ghosts. All right, let's wrap things up. That mysterious cat behaviour we so often mistake for talking to ghosts or sensing spirits, it's actually just a brilliant display of their unique biology. Their eyes see in the dark and the UV spectrum. Their ears pick up ultrasonic sounds we can't even perceive. Their nose tracks scents from the past, and those incredible whiskers detect the slightest shift in air currents. That so-called sixth sense isn't mystical at all. It's simply their five senses working together at an incredibly developed level. They inhabit the exact same world we do, but they perceive it far deeper and with many more dimensions. And honestly, I think this scientific truth about their actual superpowers is way more amazing and fascinating than any myth. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. If you learned something new about your furry friend today, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next investigations. Now, for the final question for all of you, has your cat ever done something truly inexplicable? Even taking all of this science into account? Drop your weirdest or strangest story down in the comments below. I'd love to read them.